My family had already decided where I would spend Christmas before anyone bothered to ask me. According to their plan, I would sleep in the basement, watch the children, manage Christmas morning, and somehow make everyone else free to enjoy the holiday. What they did not know was that I had already made another plan, one that would force them to face exactly how little they valued my time. I had been standing outside my parents' kitchen when I heard my mother discussing the holiday schedule with my sister, Clara. They talked about bedrooms, meals, the children's activities, and an adults-only dinner as if they were organizing a hotel reservation. Then my mother casually said I could stay downstairs because I would need to remain close to the children anyway. My father agreed immediately, saying there was no reason to hire a sitter when I was available. Clara had apparently promised everyone that I would handle Christmas Eve, Christmas morning, and the children's bedtime. Nobody had asked me, nobody had checked whether I had work, plans, or even wanted to spend Christmas that way. They had simply decided that because I was single and had no children, my calendar belonged to them. I quietly walked back to my car and sat behind the wheel for several minutes. I thought about the previous Christmas, when I had spent most of the evening downstairs watching the children while everyone else enjoyed dinner upstairs. I had even missed an important call from my manager because I was helping one of the kids settle down. That opportunity never came back. This was not an isolated incident. Throughout the year, my family had slowly turned my kindness into an obligation. Clara had asked me to watch her children for 1 hour and then disappeared for most of the afternoon. My parents had invited me to family gatherings and immediately assigned me childcare duties. Even a school fundraiser had become my responsibility because my mother volunteered me without asking first. Every time I complained, someone had the same answer. They told me I had fewer responsibilities because I was single. They reminded me that I had no children depending on me. They acted as though having an empty space on my calendar meant anyone in the family could fill it. Eventually, I started wondering whether they loved me or simply loved how useful I was. Then I remembered an invitation from my college friend Kim. She had rented a house in Florida with several friends for Christmas and still had one available spot. Weeks earlier, I had declined because I assumed my family needed me. Sitting in my car that afternoon, I called her and asked if the room was still available. It was, but I had to book immediately. I purchased the ticket before fear could change my mind. I did not announce it to my family. I did not ask permission. For once, I decided they could experience the consequences of making plans without me. Over the next few days, their messages only confirmed that I had made the right choice. Clara created a detailed Christmas schedule and placed my name beside nearly every childcare responsibility. My mother responded with hearts, and my father said the arrangement would save everyone money. Clara even canceled the backup babysitter because, according to her, they were already covered. I stared at the messages and realized something uncomfortable. They were not asking me for help anymore. They had already counted my help as guaranteed. On Christmas Eve morning, my mother called twice before I had even finished getting ready. She wanted me at the house early because Clara had changed her plans. I ignored both calls and headed toward the airport with my suitcase. My phone continued vibrating as messages filled the family group chat. Nobody seemed to understand that I was not coming. Eventually Clara called directly. She asked where I was, assuming I was simply running late. When I told her I was at the airport, she laughed and asked which family member I was picking up. I calmly told her I was flying to Florida. The laughter disappeared immediately. She accused me of abandoning everyone and ruining Christmas. I asked her one simple question: when did I ever agree to watch the children? She said everyone knew I would do it. I reminded her that being expected to do something was not the same as agreeing to it. Then she said the sentence that finally made everything clear. She told me that because I did not have a husband or children, my time was not as complicated as theirs. For years, I had heard softer versions of that same argument. This time I answered honestly. I told her that if my time was so worthless, replacing it should be easy. She called me selfish and threatened to tell her mother. I told her she would not need to because Mom was already calling. I ended the conversation and answered my mother's call. She was furious. Behind her voice, I could hear children crying, relatives talking, and someone complaining about missing shoes. My father was apparently dealing with the caterer while Clara was demanding that everyone solve the childcare problem. My mother kept repeating that they had been depending on me. I calmly told her they had been depending on an agreement that never existed. Then the blame started moving around the room. My mother blamed Clara for canceling the sitter. Clara blamed my parents for assuming I would cooperate. My father demanded that I change my flight and promised he would reimburse me later. I refused. He warned that the family would never forget what I had done. I told him that I hoped they remembered it, especially the next time they planned something involving my life. After I boarded the plane, my phone filled with messages. By the time I landed, there were dozens. Some relatives believed I had deliberately ruined Christmas. Others were beginning to question why I had been assigned so many responsibilities without ever being asked. My Aunt Linda eventually posted a screenshot of the schedule and pointed out that it looked less like a family celebration and more like a work roster. That changed everything. Someone finally asked why the family had canceled professional childcare without confirming with me. Nobody had an answer. Then another relative asked whether I was being paid. Again, there was silence. The expensive adults-only dinner had also become a problem because nobody wanted to stay home with the children. The same people who had insisted my time had no value were suddenly forced to pay almost $2,000 for emergency childcare. My father complained about the unexpected expense. My aunt responded that the problem became expensive only after they discovered that the work they expected from me had a real market value. I read that message several times. It was exactly right. They had always called my sacrifices love, because calling them unpaid labor would have made them uncomfortable. Once a professional agency put a price on the same work, everyone immediately understood what my family had been taking for granted. Later that evening, my mother called again. Her anger was gone, replaced by exhaustion. She admitted that the day had become chaotic and asked why I had not simply warned them. I told her that I had spent years warning them in smaller ways. Every time I said I was busy, they treated it as an inconvenience. Every time I asked them to respect my plans, they reminded me that family came first. She became quiet. Then she asked whether I really intended to spend Christmas away from them. I looked around the Florida rental house, where Kim and my friends were preparing dinner, laughing, and making plans that actually included me. For the first time, I did not feel guilty for choosing myself. I told my mother that I loved my family, but love did not mean unlimited access to my time. I said I would rather miss one Christmas than spend another holiday feeling like unpaid staff in my own family. She did not argue. She simply said she understood, although I was not sure she truly did yet. When Christmas morning arrived, I woke up without an alarm. There were no children knocking on my door, no schedule waiting for me, and no one telling me what I needed to do next. I walked outside with a cup of coffee and watched the sunrise over the water. I realized that the peace I felt was not because I had escaped my family. It was because I had finally stopped abandoning myself to keep them comfortable. A few weeks later, my mother apologized. Clara eventually admitted that she had assumed I would always say yes because I had never forced her to face the consequences of my absence. My father remained quieter, but even he stopped assigning me tasks without asking. Nothing became perfect overnight, but the rules of our relationship had changed. I learned something that Christmas that I wish I had understood years earlier. Being single does not make my time less valuable. Having no children does not make my life available for everyone else to organize. And being generous does not mean I have surrendered the right to say no. My family thought they were planning Christmas around me. In reality, they were planning Christmas around a version of me who always surrendered. The moment I stopped playing that role, their entire plan collapsed. And strangely enough, that was not the end of my relationship with them. It was the beginning of a healthier one, because for the first time, they had to meet the real me instead of the endlessly available woman they had created.